Hello everyone. Yes, well, it's Lawrence back again here on Disney Magic Nostalgia. Now I know that the couple of subscribers we've had probably are asking the question, where have I been? I'm the head of the channel, I've done most of the stuff so far. If you're asking why I've not really done anything on this channel for the past couple of months after doing considerably a lot, I checked earlier that we had already 9 videos up there that have actually done quite well in terms of viewing. So, yes, well, basically is I have just been rather busy with my continuous search for employment and also I've been doing a lot of work on my main channel over on for my channel Ataku Solo 90, and I've really been giving a lot of commitment to that, just trying out different things. But anyways, so yeah, back again on this channel, and just so you know, I'm going to have to keep this video relatively short due to current technical issues I'm having, caused by partly the atmospheric conditions. My internet is fairly slow as it is, and the atmospheric conditions of this country at the beginning of autumn really aren't helping. Constant rain and wind are interfering with my connection quite a bit. And as frustrating as it is, I do want to try and continue, but and I've just watched the finished watching the film of which we're going to be talking about for this video. And today's review is, well, this review is of the 1985 Disney classic, which at first was very highly underrated, but has gained a very loyal following since then, Return to Oz. Now, this was released in 1985, and it is seen to be the unofficial sequel to the Warner Brothers technically the Golden Metro Mare classic from 1939, The Wizard of Oz. I think of Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers, I think, distributed the DVD, the first DVD release of The Wizard of Oz. But yeah, so yes, basically, this is a movie that was made, and it is based off the two follow-up sequels to The Wizard of Oz. The two follow-ups by L. Frank Baum. The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz. Yeah. So basically, this starts with it. We don't exactly know how long it's been since Dorothy returned from Oz the first time. Now, as this is not an official sequel, or kind of a non-official sequel to that film, if this is supposedly Dorothy from that movie, which I don't believe it is, it's just a version of Dorothy introduced at a later point in the story. She, since then, has been having dreams, nightmares that bad things are happening to her friends in Oz, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion. And she basically has an urge she's desperate to go return to Oz, as in the title, and go and help them out. And it opens at night. It opens on a night where she's struggling to sleep, and her aunt and uncle are at almost a breaking point with what to do, because she can't stop going on about Oz, and of course, yeah, they believe it's just a dream that she had, that it's all in her head, and they forbid her from talking about it. And they have this idea to send her to this doctor at a psychiatric hospital, and that they read about in the paper. And then what happens is, Dorothy, the following day when she wakes up in the morning, she goes to check on the eggs at the farm, because since then they've got a new house built on the farm because the tornado, because the tornado that supposedly knocked Dorothy out and sent her to Oz the first time, basically destroyed the old house. So they built a new one, and a new character, a new sidekick for this film instead of Toto. Even though Toto is in the film at the beginning and at the end, Belina is an old hen that is struggling to lay, and while Dorothy's checking up to see if she's laid an egg, she finds a key that she believes was sent on the shooting star that she saw in the opening scene on the night. And she then tells Auntie Em. She tells Auntie Em about the key, and she notices that it has the Oz symbol on it, the OZ carved into the handle part of the key, and but Auntie Em dismisses it and says it's probably just a key left from the old house by the tornado. And then, then it cuts to them going to the psychiatric hospital, and Toto has to be left behind. He tries to follow the horse and cart with Auntie Em and Dorothy on it, but Dorothy basically just tells him to go home, and then unfortunately leaves Toto howling, and they arrive at the clinic where they're introduced to Dr. Wortley, played by Nicole Williamson. And also there's the head nurse, Nurse Wilson, who both of these characters portray the two primary villains when you get to Oz, because like in what they've done, even though it's not an official sequel, they have made some parallels. Disney have made some parallels in this movie to the original film. Auntie Em and Dorothy then start with an appointment with Dr. Worley, asking Dorothy questions about the supposed visions and thoughts she's having about this place that she's been to in her conscience. And she tells him about the Tin Man, that supposedly how he became a Tin Man was that he was a human who first lost his leg and then had a tin leg built to replace it, and then supposedly the witch enchanted his axe, which made him chop all the parts of his body, leading his entire body to have to be replaced by tin. Now that isn't something that's said in the original movie, but I've never actually heard or read the full book of The Wizard of Oz, so I don't know I'm not sure if that's the case, if the Tin Man, if the characters in Oz explain their origins. I'm not sure. I'd love to find out. Then what happens is Auntie Em has to leave Dorothy there overnight. And then when the Nurse Wilson comes to collect her, she's taken into the surgery where she's going to have shock therapy, because this takes place right at the dawn of the 20th century when electricities are now introduced. And the first ways to have this is the first version of shock therapy, and there's a lightning storm going on. And the scene where Dorothy's left alone in her room to when she's taken into the theatre is such an epic scene. The music that goes with it, and I'll just say this quickly, the music in this film is so epic. If you've seen it, you'll know that it's not a musical with original songs like The Wizard of Oz was. This is, a really dark, a very dark Disney film. And I think that's the reason why it got sort of mixed reviews when it first came out and wasn't very well received by critics or by fans. But over the years, through home video and then DVD, it actually has gained a very loyal following. It's appreciated because it is truly a great film. And I think a lot more people see it now for the masterpiece that it is than to when it first came out, and to not compare it to the originals. But anyway, just back to the plot. When Dorothy, this scene where after this, quite gloomy scene, Dorothy finds that there's another little girl there who comes and gives her a pumpkin because it's nearly Halloween, and then the nurse takes her to the doctor's operating theatre where she's going to be operated on. Well, she's going to be given the shock therapy, not operated on. And she gets given, and just as they're about to start the therapy, there's lightning strikes the building, and the power goes out, and then suddenly the doctor and the head nurse are nowhere to be seen. And then So Dorothy's left in the operating theatre, tied down with with electric earplugs on, which is, God, that must be bloody terrifying. Must be honestly terrifying. And so yeah, then the other little girl just suddenly comes in and unties her and everything, because she's tied down to the bed so she doesn't fall off, tied off to the hospital bed. And then what happens is they try to and then so with the girl's help, Dorothy and her escape the hospital, but they're followed by the head nurse, and they end up jumping into a river. They find like this old wooden sort of cabin thing that they climb into, and they swoop down the river. And when Dorothy wakes up, she finds that she's accompanied by Bellina, the talking hen, instead of Toto, who is, as I said, is her sidekick. She's now the sidekick in the film. When she finds out that Bellina can talk, and that's when she realises that she must be in Oz, and they've landed in a pond right in the middle of the place called the Deadly Desert, where if you touch the sand, you basically will turn to stone. And Dorothy remembers this. Now, this isn't something, of course, from the original film either. And I think what Disney did was right to incorporate other things that weren't from the original film. As they say, this is not meant to be an official sequel to The Wizard of Oz. But yeah, and then they find these lunch pails on a tree, a lunch pail tree, which Dorothy goes and picks a couple of them as reference to the fact that she had a lunch pail that the head nurse took away from her when she arrived at the hospital. And then Dorothy and Bellina then discover that the Yellow Brick Road is in ruins, and so Dorothy remembers that the Scarecrow was made King of Oz when the wizard left at the end of the original story. So then what happens is Dorothy and Bellina run to the Emerald City in minutes, which is a bit odd considering it took them pretty much the entire middle act of the first film, of the Wizard of Oz, to actually get there. But there she runs to the Emerald City, and then they discover that everyone there has been turned to stone, and that there's this group of young, attractive women who have lost their heads. And then they're encountered by these extremely creepy henchmen that scared any kid. They're called the Wheelers, which are these basically with humans, but instead of hands and feet, they have wheels that they can wheel on. God, they are blinking scary. I've just finished watching the film and I remember just how scary this was. I think lots of kids were given nightmares by them. And so after battling with the Wheelers, Dorothy finds her way into the remains of the castle, where she finds a robot, sort of a robotic mechanical being by the name of TikTok, who, because he's not alive, he wasn't affected by the supposed spell that turned them to stone. Kind of a reference to the fact that the magic spell that put Dorothy and the others to sleep, Dorothy and the Lion to sleep, didn't work on the Scarecrow or the Tin Man, because they're not alive. And then, after she's found TikTok and she's wound, because he has to be regularly wound up because he has different functioning actions that only last a certain time, because he can't wind himself up. So he's basically like a robot, sort of an updated version of the Tin Man, basically. And then he helps them to fight the Wheelers off, and eventually they get one of the Wheelers to lead them to Princess Mumby's castle, she's the first main villain. And what I know of in this film is that she's actually the combination of two different characters, supposedly from each of the two books. Because Princess Mumby, I think in the book, doesn't have the ability that she does in this film. There's another There's a second evil princess that has the ability to change her head, and when he meets her, she takes Dorothy down to this passage where there are these 30 different heads, living heads that just look at them as they walk past them. God hell, this is so creepy. Just watching it's made me remember it. So yeah, and that's when you find out that Mumby can change her head, and then when she puts a different head on, supposedly each of the different heads have brains, so her mind constantly changes because she's kind of one single person, but all the different heads have memories and personalities of their own, and when she changes her head, the head that she puts on decides to keep Dorothy locked away until Dorothy's old enough to actually take her head. But Dorothy fights her off. Dorothy fights her off with the help of her TikTok, and while Dorothy's actually locked away, there's a scene where she's locked away for refusing Mumby, and she finds basically a scarecrow with a pumpkin head, who remembers that the person who built him, who he calls his mum, built him to scare off Mumby, and he remembers he was brought to life by this powder of life that Mumby has, and so after they escape Mumby, now there's Tic Tac Jack Pumpkinhead is the pumpkin scarecrow, and they just decide how to get away from the castle because they get trapped. They find all these different things, including a head of a dead moose, which is called the Gump. What they decide to do is to put them all together to create just a sort of thing with the head of a living thing, so they can an object with basically a living thing's head, so it can help them to escape and fly. It's a sofa with a moose head on it, and also they use like plant leaves so it can fly, and it has a broom for a tail, and so what happens is Dorothy manages to go and find the powder of life, which is kept locked away with Mumby's original head, and when the head's sleeping, when Dorothy gets the powder, and then the head wakes up, and then the head screams and wakes the other heads up. God, it is just such a dark tone, really, all throughout this film. It's just no wonder that no one did want to compare it to the original, but you really can't really appreciate it if you do compare it to the original. That's the argument I make, and I think that's the argument lots of others make who are fans of the film. So yeah, basically what happens is after that, so they do escape. Mumby sends the Wheelers after them, but the Wheelers accidentally fall onto the sand when they're chasing them, and basically one Wheeler turns into sand, but the others then stop just before they actually approach the sand, and then Dorothy puts the powder of life onto the object they built. So it's called the Gump. She reads the magic words on the bottle on the label, and then it brings it to life. And then to finally escape and then that's actually the scene where the Wheelers chase after them, but because luckily the Gump can fly, it is able to stay in the air, so that they don't touch the sand of the deadly desert. And then what happens is there's this big wind that gusts them, that they get caught in the next morning, and it causes the Gump to fall apart, and they actually land at the summit of the Gnome King's Mountain, which is where they're trying to get to, because Mumby told Dorothy before basically she went berserk that the Scarecrow was taken by with all the emeralds by the Gnome King, because the Gnome King believes all the emeralds in the Emerald City to be his possession. So yeah, so they arrive at the Gnome King's mountain, where you get this excellent first display of the claymation. You do get a bit of it before, actually, when they enter Oz. I forgot to mention of the minions, the minion gnomes, the Gnome King, who basically can materialise through any rock, which is really good graphics for that time period, 1985. I wasn't even around then, but just remembering, what they did, what they could do back then, and compared to what can be done now. But yeah, so yeah, what then happens is they're introduced to the Gnome King, makes himself known to them, and Dorothy tries to bargain with the Gnome King, saying to let the Scarecrow go and have all the emeralds returned to the Emerald City. And at first, the Gnome King is resistant, but he agrees to give Dorothy a deal where they play this game where when Dorothy is finally reunited with the Scarecrow, when she falls into the Gnome King's underground cavern, the Gnome King turns him into an ornament, and her and each of her companions, so Jack Pumpkinhead, the Gump, and Tick-Tock, can each take 3 guesses at which ornament he is in a collection of ornaments, and if they guess right, then they can be freed, and they can take the emeralds back. But then, so yeah, that's basically just how it. This is basically where we get to the climax of the film, where it gets really good. So the Gump and Jack Pumpkinhead go first. Unfortunately, they both guess wrong. And then when Tic-Tac goes in, while Dorothy's waiting for him, the Gnome King reveals that he actually now has the ruby slippers. Another thing that they carried from the original film, because in the original book, the silvers were slipper, not the shoes. The slippers were silver, not ruby. Yeah, they were silver, but they just look better on film, I think, as ruby. So that's another thing. Another reference to the original film. And then when it's finally, and basically what happens is Dorothy's tricked into being let into the ornament room early, so by Tic-Toc pretending to have wound down. But what Tic-Toc's doing is he tries to get Dorothy in before he takes his last guess, so that if he guesses wrong, she can see what he's turned into and see if it gives her a clue to see what people from Oz will become. Then, so Mumby then arrives at the Gnome King's castle, explaining that Dorothy's escaped, and then the Gnome King reveals in anger that she's already there. And but just at this point, when the 2 villains are having this conversation, then Dorothy finally finds the object on her last guess that is actually the Scarecrow, and it's a green emerald. So that gives her the clue that people from Oz turn into green ornaments. So her and the Scarecrow find all the green ornaments, turn them back, and then the Gnome King, out of anger, imprisons Mumby, and then takes on this massive monster form, and basically starts to threaten to eat all the protagonists of the film, Dorothy and Scarecrow, Jack and the Gump and Tic-Toc. Actually, they never actually found Tic-Toc, but because apparently the Gnome King for some reason doesn't allow chickens in Oz, Bellina the hen had been hiding inside Jack Pumpkinhead's head in his eye the whole time, and just as he's about to put Jack into his mouth, an egg falls out basically of his head, and then the Gnome King accidentally swallows it, and reveals the reason for this was because eggs are apparently poison to gnomes. And then so basically the Gnome King, along with all his minions, that then dissolve as a result of him swallowing the egg. And then Dorothy takes back the ruby slippers, because Dorothy takes back the ruby slippers, and she wishes that for all the emeralds to be returned and for everyone turned to stone in the Emerald City to be restored to life. So that's what then happens. So, yep, everything's restored, so a happy ending. And it's revealed then that the girl, the other girl who was in the hospital at the beginning of the film, is actually a parallel to the character of Princess Ozma, who was trapped in a mirror by Mumby, because Mumby was offered a deal if she kept the princess secret. That's why she'd be given the 30 heads by the Gnome King. And so yeah, now with the Gnome King and Princess Mumby, supposedly she's now powerless as a punishment. So Dorothy can basically help Ozma to come out through the mirror, to step through the glass. And Dorothy's offered the chance to become the Queen of Oz, but unfortunately she declines and says she must go back to Kansas again. So she gives the ruby slippers back to Princess Ozma, and then Bellina for some reason decides to stay behind, which is another thing. It kind of leaves you answering the question: is Oz an actual real place, or is it something that happens in in Dorothy's conscience, or a bit of both? But so Dorothy says goodbye to everyone. You see, like, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. They're all there at the end, along with the new side characters as well. So Dorothy says goodbye, and then she finds that she wakes up at the end of the river where she fell into. Is still inside the wooden thing, the wooden cage kind of thing, and it's revealed. And then Auntie Em and Uncle Henry find her, along with Toto, because they've been searching for her all night when they heard about what happened. And then it's revealed that Dr. Worley, basically, when the clinic apparently caught fire when it was struck by a lightning bolt, he ran in to rescue his shock therapy machine, but he was burned, so he died. And then you find that the head nurse has supposedly been arrested for trying to harm the children. A reference to Mombi being put into the sort of the old-fashioned portable prison cell by the Gnome King. So then they go home, and the last kind of scene is Dorothy in her new room with she looks into a mirror where Princess Ozma's reflection appears, and she's got Bellina holding Bellina in her hand, and then Dorothy's about to tell Auntie Em about Ozma, but then Ozma stops her by just going like that, signaling her to keep quiet, and then basically that's where it ends. Okay, so yes, it is kind of a brief review, as I say. This video is already over 27 minutes, but I do have to keep things fairly brief at the moment, just due to technical issues. But anyways, yeah. This is honestly, just my final thoughts on this is, this is a good movie. It was panned by critics in 1985, generally not well received, but over the years, through it being shown at Christmas, or between Christmas and New Year, that's when I would always watch it. They'd have The Wizard of Oz, then The Return to Oz on back to back, and I would thoroughly enjoy watching them both. But this is truly a fantastic, unique Disney film. Just a wonderful product, I think, of its time. 5 years, just under 5 years before I was even around, was when this was made, and it's a childhood classic of mine, and it really deserves its following. It's a pity it didn't get it at first, but critics were so harsh on comparing it to the original, due to the original being such a classic. But anyways, but at least it's gained the following it has now. There's so much to appreciate about this film. I think so many people will thoroughly enjoy it. So if you haven't seen it, I would certainly recommend giving it a watch. Okay, well, this is Lawrence from Disney Magic Nostalgia. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. You're all awesome, and see you soon. Bye.